I am unashamed. What about you?
So welcome to Unashamed. We had a little delay in our startup today. I'm not sure that other podcast hosts, Joe Rogan, some of the others are struggling with wasp infestation in their podcast studio. But we came in this morning, there were 4 or 5 in attack mode.
You need to invest in better quality fly swatter. Because once the spray came out, which I thought was a bad idea, because you're not looking, you're focused on the wasp, and the spray is shooting a stream. So when you
Plus,
look
the
up,
stream was a little off. The stream was a little to the left.
How much does this camera cost? Just give me a ballpark. A few grand, few $1,000s, and it just took a direct hit.
So Zach, we may have some new cameras you have to purchase now because of our wasp infestation.
Yeah, that doesn't make me happy. Easy on the wasp spray. Y'all need to get one of those. They had those lights that you could put up. You know what I'm talking about? You used to have one, Phil, and the bugs go into it. It like zaps them.
Oh, a zapper. But I don't think a wasp will go in there.
Well, but
I think just flies do that. I don't think wasps go in there.
Then you have a sound issue. So I don't know.
But that would be a beautiful sound if they were sizzling on the Barbie.
It's beautiful for about 10 or 12 seconds, but 24/7 after a while, you're dreaming being electrocuted.
Did y'all bring out the wasp spray? Did you really get it on the cameras?
Al brought that out. Oh yeah,
I brought it out.
It hit. Well, I think Al wanted it. Phil had some ready. I said, I think it's a bad idea because I didn't want to breathe in the fumes, which we are now currently doing. So if you see one of us just fall over, it's contact some kind of wasp.
Well, they're supposed to kill wasps, not human beings. So I'm sure they check that.
I'm sure there's.
I'm feeling a little lightheaded.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's the spray or just I didn't get enough sleep. But
Well,
right now I am dizzy.
I hadn't smelled anything in about a month with these sinuses, so I'm good to go. So I just
fall of the year, they're making ready for the winter time, and they're looking for places to
and they love these bright lights.
Well, it wasn't just a wasp; it was an infestation.
Yeah, they were like 4, and one was in attack.
There were more than 4, I think.
One of them came for me and Jay. We had to use our hats, but Dad was trying to do it with open hands. Dad,
he went kind of karate.
He had his hands out like he was in the
train the karate.
Well, every
kid.
duck blind we have over there, they're little floating houses, all with brush on them. Wasps, they love them. So we go through it when we're brushing them. I send Dan, the eunuch, send him in first, and I explained to him, that he was, dispensable. So the wasp, he's in there fighting them wasps. But I mean, if you don't have that spray with you, when you get in there, you fix to get in a bind.
Yeah, no, I saw
there's
the
wasp nests like this.
Phil, it's fine.
With just solid purple tail wasp on them. I mean, you have to kill them.
Yeah.
Or they'll eat you up.
I think at the end of the day,
we've all been stung multiple times. Dan seemed to take it and rock on. I mean,
it's because he's a ninja.
Well, it is just a wasp spray. That's why a wasp sting is not life-threatening unless you're allergic. But I think none of us are. But
it says on there wasp and hornets. Wasp and hornets.
The funny emblem is when that Phil stopped. Because I thought, is this some kind of jiu-jitsu? Because he didn't have a weapon. Or a hat. And I thought, is he fixed to, cut this wasp in half with a karate chop?
Well, that's the thing about ninjas. They got to do some ninjing. You were in the mode. You were in the zone.
It's a pretty good little pain with it.
I don't know.
Oh man! If you get hit on the head, one got me right back here on the little back where your skull kind of comes to a point back there.
Oh yeah.
Ooh. I mean, I saw stars. It was bad. So that's how we started our day, Zach. You got any wasp issues up there in North Carolina?
No, we don't have them up. Oh, I'm sure we have them here, but Not up. I got this thing airtight. I've got the spray in foam. I've got the whole 9 yards. They're not getting in here.
Yeah, you got a nice little setup there. You built your little studio, little apartment above your garage. That's a nice setup.
Yeah, we like it. It's good.
So we had an appearance, Zach, last week. First time the family in several years. I don't remember the last time we were all on stage together, but folks on the family had an event and invited the whole family, and he had called me about a year ago, Jim Daly, and said, "What are the odds that you think of chance of getting all the Robertsons on stage together?" I said, somewhere between slim and none is where I would place those odds, and yet we all wound up together.
Did he say, "So you're telling me there's a chance"?
that's what he must have thought.
Tucker Carlson was following us.
Yeah, I met Tucker, which I'm a big fan.
What do you mean following us up?
He was the next morning. Tucker was there at the event.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I hung around. Y'all had to come home, but I hung around so I could meet him. But he was genuine. He seemed like he does on the show. You know, he lives out in the woods. He told me he had been grouse hunting the day before, and said he shot a duck because duck season was over. He was in Maine. I think he has a place up there, and he said he was grouse hunting, and a duck flew by and he shot him.
That's some fine table fare there.
Oh yeah,
Old Tucker. I didn't realize that.
He's a big hunter. Told me he loves to hunt.
Feel better about him.
Feel a lot better about it.
He loves to hunt. He loves to fish. He was talking about some of the hunting trips he and his son have been on, but he was a really quality person.
I wish someone would have filmed our travel there. That was pretty good. They sent an actual jet to come get us because everybody's schedules was wonky. And the first thing that happened is that everybody had their cups in the cup holders, and so when the jet took off, it looked like I was in some kind of slow motion Matrix movie
because everything was coming.
Everything was just coming at me in pieces and chunks. It looked like we lifted off in a hailstorm. It was just ice and debris and screams.
Yeti cups.
Oh, shit. But everything, I don't know why it had that look. It looked like 3D to me.
Well, that jet y'all were on is one of those Falcons. And I mean, those things are like a rocket ship. When they take off, it's almost like a Space Force.
Yeah.
SpaceX.
Oh, yeah.
Willie took the brunt of the cups because he was right in front of me, which I was in the best seat in the house, right behind Willie. I just used him as a blocker.
A human shield.
And he was completely soaked. Oh, it's funny now.
You got to be you guys got to be careful around your crew with what's in those cups. It's liable to be a spit cup. I think we've all kind of
there's been the experience.
Well, what was borderline miraculous? Oh, we have some arrivals. We're having to close the door.
We were trying to get the wasp smell, the spray smell out of our studio.
What was interesting because our wives were all dolled up, but they all none of them took a direct hit. Only the men.
So Missy was wearing some white pants, and I didn't know y'all had gone through that till y'all told the story. But then we get in the green room. That's a big room to kind of hang out into. We had to do our show.
That nothing green is
no green in the green room. I don't think I've ever been in a green room. But anyway, so Missy she's got the white. We're telling the story, and all of a sudden, they're sitting around a table. And the table
it was me, Si. Who was sitting at
Jessica
the table?
was there.
Jessica and Missy.
Missy was on the
and Phyllis and
It was
Tony.
a fold-up table.
Well, we had our
folded
stuff
up.
on it, and we all had drinks on the table because everybody was thirsty after you lost all your drinks taken off 2 hours before.
all of a sudden the table just starts cratering.
It was
No,
the
the first
second
thing-
avalanche of water.
Another
cups.
avalanche, the table collapsed, but Si gave the play-by. Si went, whoa, whoa, whoa. I think Si was like kicking around
He
on
must
the
have been,
table because
yeah.
he was like, ho, 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 ho. But you don't notice Si doing that because he does it all the time.
Well, right, because that's anywhere he goes.
He was
And
seated in the position where it all rolled forward and it just collapsed.
Almost on Missy, which two things, Jess. One is I was impressed. She had her reflexes. She's still solid
Was
because
that a hotel we were in?
yeah, like a big resort.
Yeah, Yeah, they call it a resort. I wouldn't call it a hotel.
But yeah, so that table started going down. Well, all of a sudden, all the drinks are headed right toward Missy.
Yeah, it got slow motion again.
I know it.
But she just bolted.
It never touched her.
And mom was screaming like somebody had run over Bobo.
Yeah.
I mean, in the background. So I was like, I'm looking around like, what in the world is going on here? But it was
It's pretty comical.
Missy said, I think we're jinxed.
So did you all speak individually, or was it like a family interview? What was the?
Kind of a cool way they did it.
We walked in there and this set looked incredible.
It did.
It looked like a real fire in a fireplace, and we actually had Christmas with the Robertsons.
Christmas with the Robertsons.
And it was Halloween wasn't here yet.
Yeah,
So that was a weird usually you go, well, I just skip Halloween. I'm not worried about that. I go Thanksgiving, then Christmas. They went Christmas in October.
And I think they're going to broadcast it on their.
Oh, they filmed that?
Yeah, they filmed it.
Oh boy.
So I think, maybe they just recorded it
I didn't know we were being filmed.
It's a radio broadcast, is what.
Did I say anything real stupid?
No, you did good. Right. But no, the set was beautiful and amazing, unbelievable. And then, so what they did was Jase did a little duck call demonstration, which was excellent, by the way. You know,
they asked me to do that,
and I thought you did great.
So, but they said, well, Cy is not, he just had surgery.
Yeah.
He's doing well, but relatively speaking, he has an oxygen tank. So I thought, well, they wanted me and Cy to do a duck call demonstration, and I didn't want to say, Cy's carrying around an oxygen tank.
Yeah, he's not be blowing.
He's out of gas when it comes to duck
Yeah, that would have been a better line. He's out of gas. And so, but what I did was, I was kind of proud of this. Because Cy, I didn't know he was going to stand up and come up there with me. Because Cy, when he walks further than 10 feet,
oh man,
he needs a minute.
Yeah.
And so I look up and here he comes. Well, he looked like, not Darth Vader, but he's got his pack on.
With his oxygen.
It looks like he can just do push the fingers.
Like he's James Bond.
It's like a jetpack.
Yeah, jetpack.
So I said, because I thought, well, if he's self-conscious about this, I said, we're going to do a duck call demonstration. And I said, to show you how serious Cy is about this, he brought his own oxygen tank. So then it kind of diffused the look that he had. So I was like, hey.
So Jase would do his thing, and then Cy would chime in at the end.
We had no plan. There was no script. Just every once in a while, Cy would say something, and everybody would laugh.
Right. So they did that, and then the way the thing unfolded, Zach, was they gave us a gift ornament, like an ornament to each couple, and it was kind of a lead-in to Jim to ask us some questions about it. So
nobody knew what it was.
Right.
So
it was a pretty cool way to do it. And then of course Cy was going to tell us the story about his Tupperware cup, but he just never got there. He would veer off into another story.
I was having a Rolodex problem in his brain on what story goes with what subject.
Because I've heard him tell this story 1,000 times on stage, but he just couldn't get there.
Finally, Willie said, hey, Cy, they want to hear the story about the Tupperware being sent to Vietnam. So Cy said, oh, okay. And then Cy told a story about getting drunk on 7-Up in college. And I kept waiting for we were pouring it in Tupperware. No, Tupperware never made an appearance again. And so then there was another interruption, and somebody said, Cy, Tupperware. And he's like, oh. Then he told some story about Tommy and Nancy.
About getting grades.
Yeah, and I thought, where's the Tupperware coming in here to this? No, never did.
Hang on. Let's take a break. So one of the things we're gearing up for the fall is with one of my favorite sponsors, that's Bespoke Post, because they have a seasonal lineup. And so I look forward to every season just as much as I look forward to my monthly little box of awesome that they send. So a lot of times you get stuff for, outdoor, autumn, maybe it's cocktail kits, maybe it's something to do with camping or outside, because that's kind of our favorite time of year down here in Louisiana. So what you do is if you want to sign up with these guys, you start with a quiz at boxofawesome.com. And your answer is going to help them pick the right box of awesome for you. So they're going to get a new box every month. It's got a lot of different categories, a lot of different gifts. I love mine. Each box is valued at about $70, but you only pay a fraction of that price. So you're going to get more value than what you're spending. Plus, with each box of awesome, you're supporting small businesses, which we also love. 90% of everything that comes in your box of awesome is from a small up-and-coming brand. It's free to sign up. You can skip a month or you can cancel anytime. You get 20% off your first monthly box when you sign up at boxofawesome.com and enter the code Phil at checkout. That's boxofawesome.com. Use the code Phil, 20% off your first box. Boxofawesome.com, code Phil, and get ready for a nice surprise.
I'm not sure if we had
finally,
too much oxygen leaking
So
through.
finally, we weren't having enough time for everybody to talk. So Willie, thankfully, just stepped in and said, so he went to Vietnam, he got the Tupperware, the end of the story. Willie just told the end of the story.
Yeah, there was no rhyme or reason.
Oh, that's funny.
So it kind of went through. It's funny. Willie did his jukebox hero deal, and then Dad was
that was funny.
That was really funny.
Yeah.
And Dad was our bullpen closer with kind of this is why we celebrate Christmas. He gave a little Jesus.
No, it was good.
At the end. I thought it was really good. It was fun. It was fun. It was fun for me just to be on stage with him.
And my gift was a little plastic truck, and I said, I think the message is just keep on trucking.
Well, I was in Phil's defense. Everybody else kind of had a thought of what you could talk about. Like they gave Missy and I was a little house Christmas ornament, but we got a lot of things going on in our house right now. So
I thought that went pretty good though.
We talked about. Phil has a truck, and I'm like, I got nothing on that. I mean, what in the world does a truck?
Here was their thinking, because I was in on some.
Y'all told me later, but I was like, no one else would think that.
But they were just going off of their interactions with different ones of us, and so you and Mom had been on a program before on Focus on the Family, and Mom told the story about you pulling up in that gray truck at the parking lot. So in their minds, they were thinking, like, they'll get this right off the bat. But, you weren't thinking.
That gray truck was 50 years ago.
50 years ago.
That's it.
I was nervous for Phil because when I saw that it was a truck, I thought.
That's it. Keep on trucking.
What in the world does that mean?
I thought it was funny. So Jim Day looks right at me and says, Al, will you tell your dad what we were thinking? So I said, Dad, they were talking about that truck when you found Jesus. And all I had to do was say the word Jesus, and it was like I flipped a switch with Dad. But it was excellent, Dad. Your clothes was perfect.
In a way, it was just keep on keeping on.
Yeah, it was.
Keep on trucking.
It was
good.
It was fun.
All right, where are we at in Mark? I forgot where we left off.
We are in Mark chapter 9. We did the transfiguration last time.
Oh, yeah, that was enlightening.
Yeah, I thought that was really powerful.
Get it?
Yeah, it was.
I mean, if you can, if somebody ever challenges, Jesus, because another one of these, somebody else sent me another text. What was that now? They were watching a movie, Guardians of the Galaxy, I think.
Yep.
So I sent back. Oh no, my daughter sent me that, and I said, "Where'd they get that idea?" Guardians of the Galaxy. But another feature is glowing in the dark.
But
Jesus,
I bet you didn't know
glowed in the dark.
The Guardians of the Galaxy are actually all part of the Avengers and the superheroes, blah blah blah. It's stuff we've been talking about.
That's the one with the raccoons driving.
The raccoons in charge, and then there's a tree.
Well, let me just tell you something, Al. In real life, raccoons will never drive a spaceship. No, look, you have to say that these days because people believe that. You know what I mean?
I know.
And they're not talking either, like the English language.
And that's Bradley Cooper is the voice of the raccoon.
I'm not against it. I'm just saying, if we want to do something for fun, okay, have a raccoon driving a spaceship talking. All right, fine. In real life, that does not happen, nor will it ever.
Not only is he a talking raccoon and flies a spaceship, but he's a guardian of the galaxy. He's one of the guardians.
Yeah. I think I would have picked like a honey badger.
Honey badger's ferocious.
Yeah, I know. I mean, a raccoon's pretty tough, but I'd go with I think if a honey badger and a raccoon got in it, I'm going with the honey badger. That's just my observation,
Well,
Phil.
Jase has some observations, doesn't he? That mind, if we could see how that's working, it would be frightening. So transfiguration, back to Mark 9.
Well, I was just making the point that Jesus glowed in the dark.
So he is the guardian of the galaxy.
And he is the guardian of the galaxy.
No, and we talked, I think we definitely fleshed that out in the idea of law and prophecy and how everything was fulfilled in Jesus. So it was just kind of a little snippet. What was interesting is it was really for an audience of 3. I mean, the whole thing, the only people that saw it that would be able to tell about it were Peter, James, and John, because nobody else saw it. So obviously they were the recipients to see what this was all about. So this is really to aim post. And so we get to 9:14.
But I do think you had instruction from heaven, God the Father, that said, listen to him.
Right.
And I do think that's an important thing to have recorded for us.
Right.
Today. I mean, we can say, you need to focus on Jesus, or where's Jesus in this equation, or I think this event is just profound with that, in tying it in with what we read in Hebrews.
It's interesting. I never thought about it till we were just talking about that. I don't think John doesn't mention this in his account.
No, he doesn't.
Which is strange. You'd think if you saw this, of course, he picks Jesus up kind of at the back end of the whole situation, but he doesn't even mention it. But he did say, if I wrote down everything I saw, there's not enough books to hold what I saw.
That was kind of his take.
Yeah. But he didn't.
It was just one of many.
Right.
That's why I made the point, one of the points that you find in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, 4 men running with the creator of the cosmos and the one who created them in their mother's womb. And he's going around talking to people, trying to convince them he's the way, the truth, the life. He is it. He'll give you eternal life. He came to love. He loves you. He didn't come to condemn you. All that's in there. And someone says, well, why does Matthew and Mark and Luke and John end up all saying the same thing? He died on a cross, was buried, and raised from the dead. Yeah. And my point was, the reason is so that you can't miss it. If you just read it and you say, it clarifies your existence, where you came from, what you're doing here, where you're going, any kind of hope beyond this life. I mean, it's all written down there, and some very wild things. It's almost like get the greatest minds in Hollywood and concoct this kind of being, and they do it all the time. The coons driving some kind of spaceship.
I shouldn't have brought that up.
That's pretty good. That's out there. So you get to looking at all that. You say, where did all that come from? You got the story of Jesus. That's that amazing. I just mentioned the reason why is so you can't miss it.
Right.
Come in it from any angle. How could these different individuals come up with all of these stories and all of these events and all these evil against good? And it just presents a story that you can't get around.
That's right.
So that's my faith. I can tell you that. I said, I don't think they could have dreamed it up.
Well, just think where
It's too grand for human beings to have dreamed up, dating back thousands of years, the prediction of him coming and all that. Well, he gets there, and lo and behold, you say, boy, the Old Testament, the prophets had him coming, what he would be, what his name would be, where he would be born, They got it all down there, the facts. But just as you read it unfold, you got God, the creator of the cosmos, on the planet in a human body. You're talking about, it would take more than Hollywood to dream it up. That went past any of the the big movie makers in Hollywood, they can't touch the story.
No, and to Jase's
Too
point,
big.
they kind of just keep retelling elements of this story
Yep,
in whimsical, fantastical ways, I guess.
that's correct.
Yeah, but they're always lacking. That's what makes this so powerful in Mark 9 about this transfiguration of Jesus. I love that we hit on the fact that Moses and Elijah were there with him and having a conversation, and they represent the law and the prophets.
Yep.
And I was thinking about Matthew 22 when the Pharisees are trying to trap Jesus. Actually, the Pharisees and the Sadducees are trying to trap Jesus, and they throw out all these little traps for him. And then the final trap they lay as they ask him, they say, "What's the greatest commandment of all the commandments? What's the greatest one?" And Jesus, and we all know what he said. He said, "Is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind." And the second one is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. And he says this interesting thing in there that I think connects with this transfiguration. He says the entirety of the law and the prophets hinge or rest on this command, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. So you have this moment in biblical history where in the person of Jesus comes the summation of the law, comes the summation of all the prophets. Everything was pointing to this person, Jesus, who now is on this mountain. He's having a conversation with the law. He's having a conversation with the prophet. And what he's saying is, I'm going to ascend. I'm going to depart from here. I'm going to die on a cross. I'm going to be buried, and I'm going to be raised, and I'm going to ascend to sit at the right hand of God and mediate. And then our response to that is what he says in Matthew 22. It's just simply that's what he's bringing forth. He's accomplishing righteousness for us, but it happens not with the external things we do, like the Pharisees were doing. It happens with our heart. Like we start to desire what God desires. We start to want what God wants, and we get caught up into God's inner life. I just think that's so beautiful that you see that in this picture here in Mark 9.
I made the point in that little quick speech the other night. Eternity is riding on it. Eternity's offered to the human race. It's at stake, and it's a wonderful thing, you say. So there's a way out of here. Here's my point, and I keep asking people, and no one has come up with a good answer yet. And the best of the atheists, the smartest of the whole bunch, you say, but what is the downside for loving God, a human being loving his God and loving his neighbor? What is the downside to that? And everybody always just sit there and they look at you, but they don't answer that. They don't answer that question. What's the downside to it? I don't see the downside. Do you, Al?
No, there's not one. Let's take another break. So it's important, in this life, we talk about eternal health care and eternal insurance, but while we're living on this earth, it is important to have life insurance just for your family, because you're never quite sure what might happen. Your family has needs. You don't want people to be left without. And so one of our sponsors, Policy Genius, has a way of helping you pick a better life insurance policy. And with Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $17 per month for $500,000 of coverage. They have licensed agents who can help you find options that can offer coverage in as little as a week. You can avoid unnecessary medical exams. There's no added fees. Your personal info is always private, and they're not incentivized to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust them. So they have thousands of 5-star reviews because of the way they do business. Your loved ones deserve a financial safety net. You deserve a smarter way to find and buy it. Here's what you do. Head to policygenius.com/Phil or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. So that's policygenius.com/Phil. Policygenius.com/Phil to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. So there is no downside. And to your point, Dad, I'm so grateful these guys did write all this down, or we would know. We would know what all happened.
I mean, they were there, and they had a very difficult time.
Yeah.
you mentioned in the, after the transfiguration, let's see, James and John returned to find the remaining 9 disciples. Well, guess what they're doing? They're arguing with the Jewish leaders.
Right.
I mean, it's a.
Which, you know what I thought about that?
The groundwork is being laid. We got to kill this guy.
So you're coming down off this mountain. Say you look at this through Peter, James, and John's perspective. You've just seen the most incredible thing you've ever seen. I mean, there 2 ancient people seemed to be there, and then Jesus lights up like a Times Square.
Yeah.
And you're watching it, and Mark said they were so frightened that Peter, he didn't even really know what.
You're basically in the middle of nowhere.
Right. And you see this incredible, amazing thing. And so you come down off the mountain in verse 14 when they came to the other disciples. So here's the other 9. And now we're just back to the grind.
Yep.
Because when they show up, they saw a large crowd around them and the teachers of the law arguing with them.
I've always wondered, why didn't he show the whole bunch? But the answer I gave myself was that they couldn't handle it.
No.
I mean, Peter's saying, well, we need to build 3 different.
Right. Because they were so frightened, Mark said.
Yeah.
So, I think he was zeroed in on those 3 for some reason, specific reason. And I don't know if you're right. If he thought they had what it took, but
Somebody asked me, how did he know who Elijah and Moses, how did he know who they were?
Yeah.
Because they just appeared, and somehow Peter and them looked and said, good night.
It's not like they were wearing name tags.
No.
These people lived
Fair question.
1,500 years before. But I think...
How would Peter have said, and he was standing there with
Well, I guess
Moses?
Jesus,
something about... Jesus either told him, or they heard him talking, or something about them seemed obvious that that's who they were. I don't know. How would you know? Somebody that lived 1,000 years before.
I mean, I'm sure they were aware who Moses was. They all their life probably heard.
They knew about him.
No, they knew. Yeah, about him, but they didn't know what he looked like, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they didn't
Unless
know.
they saw some picture or painting.
Well, I wouldn't have had anything like that far back.
This is
Well, I
pre-computer
bet they
and pre-cameras.
Yeah.
So that we just have somebody telling about what they saw.
Right.
It wasn't like, get a shot of that.
I'm sure they had artists of people seeing somewhat what they look like. No?
Right.
In other words, if they had the same technology then as you have now, you'd have just said, check this out. Look at this. What happened the other day over there.
Well, you'd have just said selfie.
And they
I'm
gave
just saying, if
they gave you the
like
mountain name. They said, where were they at? What was the name of the
That they were on?
the mountain they were on?
I don't know that it
Never say.
says.
Well, I'm saying out like in the Torah that they all read, they didn't have like the picture version.
Right.
Also, no.
No.
Well, I'm saying in these caves back where they're finding stuff, they had pictures all.
I mean, I guess theoretically
rock
somebody
wall.
could have drawn something, but I doubt
don't
it
know
would
if
have
you
been a
would
likeness.
know that was Moses. But I mean, they're probably
The
right.
Egyptians had a lot of stuff they drew out, symbols and signs.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that was when Moses was around.
But I think he's probably looking at it from retrospect. But what I was going to say is, we're in a section where 3 times, and once in chapter 8, then in chapter 9, and then chapter 10, he reminds them, or I guess the first time he instructs them that he's going to die, be buried, and be raised. And so all these other events are like in between that introduction.
Could it have been to your point? Since he's just brought up, I'm gonna live and I'm gonna die here, be buried and be raised from the dead. Maybe the picture with 2 people pulled out of past history was just a way of saying,
that's where
kind of like this.
That's where I was.
There's
going with
Moses
that.
and Elijah. Where did they come? And they were like, well, you're going to do what? I'm going to die. But these people died a long time ago. You see them standing there.
Right.
It kind of makes me feel better about my physical
I
death.
think there's no doubt it was a glimpse of the resurrection.
Oh,
For sure, because you were seeing glorified Jesus, and here's these 2 that shows that we're going to live beyond this.
But I think most religious people, their problem with Jesus is that they view success as in living a long life, be it like Moses lived a long life, other religious leaders of the day, who were, who was Muhammad and Buddha. I think they were back there and all that.
Muhammad was like 600 AD.
Confucius, maybe.
Maybe.
So they all lived long. I know that. So they were deemed successful. So when you think of other people trying to be a religious leader, well, if you're just snuffed out at an early age, every other time, that ends the movement.
Yeah.
So I think that's why people they view this Jesus's method as in, well, wait a minute now, you're gonna die. You're a man, and you're gonna die. You're gonna be killed. Well, I'm out on that. It just doesn't seem like something fantastical.
Yeah.
So I do think
that doesn't mention. I mean, it doesn't explain how you win.
Well, right, your enemies beat you.
Yeah.
Where's the victory? That's
like this
what I
is
was
in it.
trying to say.
Right.
But so I think Jesus recognizes that with his disciples. That's why he keeps reminding them what he's going to do. However, that would be so hard to wrap your head around because that's never been successful in the history of mankind before or since, where you're just going to come. I've used this illustration before, but it's like if you're on a bridge and you say, watch this, I'm going to give my life, and you jump off the bridge and die. Well, what do we say? We say,
Okay.
well, that was dumb.
Yeah.
Or that was crazy. Or that was, even if you found some bit of inspiration in, okay, that guy was crazy, but courageous.
He was committed.
But you're not following. What Jesus did was ultimately attach his death. It wasn't just for his enemies. It wasn't for people. It was for me. And that's where things changed. But for you to wrap your head around that, you had to have the resurrection as the catalyst. And I think he had to introduce the possibility of it, because he's going to say in this next story, with God, everything is possible. Well, do you think it's a weird coincidence that this next miracle is right after the transfiguration? I would begin to conclude, if my Savior and Lord, the leader, or at this point he's a potential son of God if I'm a follower. Once you're glowing in the dark on the top of a mountain with a dead guy and another guy who hadn't been here for hundreds of years, who was a mysterious story about him just being called up to heaven.
Yeah, left here on a fiery chariot.
At that point, I would be saying, you know what? There is a chance.
Well,
That maybe.
I think that's the
hang on,
reason
Dad.
the apostle.
Hang on, Dad. Hang on.
Yep.
Hang on. Let's take a break. So as much as I hate to admit it, out of the three of us here on this podcast, I'm probably getting the most dad bod of the group. And it's just because as you get older, you just don't quite have the energy that you used to have to work out. That's because when you were younger, you were at the peak of your testosterone production. Some people have called it the winner's hormone or the man hormone. So you got to get that swagger back in your step. If you want more energy to counter the negative physical effects of aging, go to Nugenix Total T Testosterone Booster with Testofen. This is going to help you turn back the clock, re-energize your workouts, get you better results in the gym, and help you look and feel like the man that you really want to be. Nugenix Total T is the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. They can help you re-energize your life and get you back to that powerful, confident, good-looking warrior that you used to be. To get a complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, text Unashamed to 231-231. So text now and get a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, their most powerful fat incinerator ever, with key ingredients to help you get back into shape fast, absolutely free. Text Unashamed to 231-231. That's Unashamed to 231-231. Messages and data rates may apply. Terms apply. Available at nugenix.com/terms.
I think it's why the Apostle Paul said, now we know that if the earthly, you got to remember, first thing Peter wanted to do was build 3 tents, right?
Right.
Well, he said, 2 Corinthians 5, We know that if the earthly tent we live in is destroyed, Moses died a long time ago, so did Elijah. We have a building from God, an eternal house in heaven, not built by human hands. So we groan, longing to be clothed with our heavenly dwelling. You're seeing a picture, in my opinion, of the heavenly dwelling. It's you, but you can appear and reappear. You're still here.
Yep.
I mean, and your being is still there, but you're out of the body you had. That's temporary. But God's Spirit in these two, by the Spirit, power of the Spirit of God, you can look at them, you can talk to them, they can talk to you. They're alive. That's why Jesus said, I'm going to be resurrected from the dead, and then I'm going to make it possible for all you to be raised from the dead yourselves, and you'll be in these heavenly bodies.
Glorified.
And I'm going to show you a couple of them just so you'll know. You know, it's you, but you're there forever now.
Right.
That's just a point I'd like to make.
I think that's a great point, because if you think about these tents that you're talking about, these 3 tents they wanted to build, what is the purpose of a tent? You dwell inside
housing.
Of it. It's housing, right?
Yep.
It's a house, and you're inside of it. This is where we dwell. This is where we live. This is our home, right? And I love this because when you consider what Jesus brought, and I didn't realize this until several years ago, because I'd always thought about Jesus in terms of maybe the gospel and forgiveness of sins, and certainly that is a huge part of his ministry. But in the book of Matthew, Jesus spoke about the kingdom 53 times in 42 different places. So you think about, man, when we hear the name Jesus, what is the first thing that should pop in our mind? And it really should be the kingdom, because that's what he came talking about, was the coming of the kingdom of God. Even in the center, I mean, not the sinner's prayer, the Lord's prayer. What does he say? Thy kingdom. We pray to God. We pray, Thy kingdom come, Thy will be done. Where? On earth. How? Just like it is in heaven. And so we're praying, we're asking for God's kingdom to come, and we're not bringing it into being. I mean, God's bringing it into being through us, but God's kingdom is here. And I think what that means is what you're talking about. This is the bizarreness, or as the word Jase would use, the fantastical part of Jesus's ministry. And what he was saying is that you're going to be the tent. You're going to be the house.
Correct.
Like our bodies, my body houses the Holy Spirit. My body houses God himself. And so when you think about true connection, truly living in the presence of God, like truly being one with our Creator, like Christ is like, I'm coming here to accomplish this, and then I'm going to leave, and then I'm going to send the Holy Spirit, and we're coming in to live in the heart, in the body of the believer. And I just thought, man, if we could get that one point, because if you think about, if you ran into Mother Mary, Jesus's mother, who had Jesus in utero, in her womb, and you knew that she was carrying the Son of God in her womb, how would you treat her? You would treat her with reverence. You would treat her with respect. You would honor her. And I think that's why that greatest commandment is summed up in the second one's like it. We love each other because we house God. We are carrying God in our bodies, which is, that's just so profound to me. It's just so profound to consider the brevity of that fact alone, that we house God in our bodies. And that's part of what Jesus brought when he talked about the kingdom. That's what he's establishing.
Well, and part of what is interesting is that, because you look at what Peter's response was, and it's the knee-jerk response of everybody. You try to take this amazing thing and then house it in something we build.
But you also got to remember.
What I'm saying? It's like immediately he thought, okay, we need to build a structure so we can worship you in the structure.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, it's out of that.
But you got to remember this event is bookended by Jesus preparing them for his death that's upcoming. And I think this next miracle, he brings prayer and faith into it, because you got to remember he's with them right now. They're not living by faith; they're living by sight. I mean, they're seeing him, which I think earlier Phil had asked why he didn't show, this to the rest of them, and because I still think he's wanting this plan to come out and come together, because we keep going back to that passage in Corinthians that Paul wrote that says, well, if the rulers of that age would have known who they were crucified, they wouldn't have crucified.
Well, and that's why there's been like a whole kind of secret nature. Let's take our last break. All right, it's time to up your kitchen knife game with one of our newer sponsors, Kamikoto Knives. They use traditional techniques. The Kamikoto crafts beautiful knives using steel sourced from Japan. Very sharp, but very effective. Each blade is made with techniques that have been honed and perfected by generations of knife smiths. They come in beautiful, heavy-duty ash wood box. Every blade is individually inspected and comes with a lifetime guarantee. You're not going to be able to beat that. They use steel that's sourced from Japan. Each blade is made with techniques that have been honed and perfected by generations of knife smiths. I've loved Japanese steel for years in the kitchen. It's very good. It's very sharp. They come in a really beautiful, heavy-duty ashwood box, which would be great for gifts. Each is individually inspected, and it comes with a lifetime guarantee. You're not going to be able to beat that, Jay. It's a lifetime guarantee. They have a single bevel edge, which means they can achieve a wickedly sharp edge, the kind you don't get with other knives. They are cut through your ribeye like butter sharp, which I love that. Several great chefs at Michelin star restaurants around the world use them. And like I said, they come in a beautiful box. They would make a great gift. They also have the Kamikoto sharpening whetstones, which helps you keep them nice and sharp to go with that lifetime guarantee. So if you go ahead and buy now, Kamikoto is offering you an extra $50 off site-wide on top of their Black Friday sale. So go to kamikoto.com. That's kamikoto.com/Phil. Use the offer code Phil for an extra $50 off. kamikoto.com/Phil, kamikoto.com/Phil. Let me read this story, Jay, so that way we can talk about it in the last segment in overtime. So when they came to the other disciples, they're arguing with the teachers of the law. As soon as all the people saw Jesus, they were overwhelmed with wonder and ran to greet him. And I wonder if there was a little afterglow.
Well, I've had people,
because remember Moses, whenever he would have those encounters, he would have a little afterglow. I wonder if that's what that means, but who knows? I mean, they had a lot of wonder about Jesus anyway. So Jesus says in verse 16, "What are you arguing with them about?" So he's that's addressed to the disciples, I guess, the other 9. A man in the crowd answered, "Teacher, I brought you my son, who is possessed by a spirit that has robbed him of speech. Whenever it seizes him, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not." So that would be terrifying. That was your child or son. Verse 19, "O unbelieving generation," Jesus replied, "how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy to me." So they brought him. When the spirit saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy into a convulsion. He fell to the ground, rolled around, foaming at the mouth. Jesus asked the boy's father, "How long has he been like this?" "From childhood," he answered. "It has often thrown him into fire or water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us." "If you can," said Jesus, "everything is possible for him who believes." Immediately the boy's father exclaimed, one of my favorite lines of the Bible, "I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief," which is so honest. Verse 25, when Jesus saw that the crowd was running to the scene, he rebuked the evil spirit. "You deaf and mute spirit," he said, "I command you, come out of him and never enter him again." The spirit shrieked, convulsed him violently, and came out. The boy looked so much like a corpse that many said, "He's dead." But Jesus took him by the hand, lifted him up to his feet, and he stood up. After Jesus had gone indoors, his disciples asked him privately, "Why couldn't we drive it out?" He replied, "This kind can come out only by prayer," which is
That's powerful.
But then,
Yeah, because it's funny. So many people, they want to be able to have this power, like to drive out demons or whatever the thing is. But here, you see that there's that's power. If you can drive out a demon by the name of Jesus, I mean that's power. But I love how he puts prayer in a more powerful position than even that. Because he said, and then there's some kind of demons, you can drive, but then these big boys.
Well, that's what got me, that there's like levels of demon possession. I mean, someone's like, oh yeah, you can, because they had the ability to drive out demons. They had been doing it earlier. Remember when he sent them out? But apparently, this one here, this was something that was,
Well, there's a lot of power in prayer. I'm actually working on once we're done with Phil's film, we're in pre-production right now on another film project, Power of a Praying Wife, and which is a book that was really popular back in the 90s, I believe. But this idea that prayer has a ton of power, and it's so funny that people they say, "I want that." Oh, well, are you praying? Oh no. If you want to really see God's power in your life, I don't know how you're going to see it without prayer, but I think this text here elevates the purpose and the power of prayer. That's why I love it. It's encouraging.
No, I think so too, and it's interesting because I did think when you look at in the Matthew version of this, in Matthew 17:15, the Father, Mark doesn't put it this way, but the Father comes up and he calls Jesus Lord. And obviously he's struggling with belief, but I thought it was interesting, Jace, because he had the same approach as that Greek woman when she came up. Remember and said, "Lord, Son of David." 3 times she called him Lord. I mean, immediately he knows something about Jesus that he can help, but he doesn't really. He's having trouble believing he can do it because he says that. He said, "I believe, but help me in my unbelief," which I think is an honest way of.
Well, I think their biggest problem was, if you read the rest of the story, when he said this kind can only come out in prayer. Well, when you look at how the disciples, what their mindset was, if you keep reading, it says they left that place and passed through Galilee. Jesus did not want anyone to know where they were because he was teaching his disciples. And he said, here we go again. The Son of Man is going to be betrayed into the hands of men. They will kill him, and after 3 days he will rise. But watch the disciples' response. But they did not understand what he meant and were afraid to ask him about it. And when you think about what prayer is asking God about it. I mean, they're standing there with the Son of God.
Right.
But they're having trouble deeming him as the Son of God. And then you see another clue of where they were. When it's in the next couple verses, it says they came to Capernaum when he was in the house, and he asked them, "What were you arguing about on the road?" So you have a lot of arguing going on, and they're scared to ask Jesus about it, and they couldn't pull off this event with the demon.
Yeah,
and he was inferring that they weren't asking God to do it, and I know why, because of this little clue in 34. They kept quiet. Now, this is the second time that in 2 verses that they didn't ask Jesus about it, and now they didn't answer Jesus because on the way they had been arguing about who is the greatest. I'm going to just tell you something. Your prayer life is probably pretty stinky if you're arguing about who's the greatest among you.
Among your group.
And I think if you put all those together, I think that's what the problem was. And I do think there was a fear element into this, the kid who was healed. I mean, when you read what he was going through, that would be very terrifying to be involved in.
Right.
I mean, it's not like he just has a demon. I mean, he's foaming at the mouth. It's what did it say?
It's
thrown him
dangerous.
into the fire.
Throws him into fire and water. It's trying to kill him. I mean, the demon's trying to kill the host.
So it's like, if you were involved in that, you would try to heal him from afar. I mean,
is that a play on words? Or
well, I'm just saying, it's like people when they tell you what's going on in your life, and it seems so heavy, and so, I mean, your auto reply is, "I'm gonna pray for you," as I'm leaving. You know what I mean? It's like, because it's just too heavy to get involved,
right?
And I really believe that's how we are.
No, I think you're right. We'll flesh out a little bit more of this in overtime, because that verse 19, I think, is interesting, because is that more aimed at the disciples or the crowd? But we'll get into that on the other side. So if you want to follow us over to our Unashamed overtime segments, it's blazetv.com/unashamed. Right now they're running a promotion. You can get $10 off a subscription if you use the promo code Phil. So if you want to catch our overtime as well as everything else that Blaze has to offer, follow us over.
Thanks for listening to the Unashamed podcast. Help us out by rating us on iTunes. And don't miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube, and be sure to click that little bell to get notified about new episodes. And for even more content that you won't get anywhere else, subscribe to Blaze TV at blazetv.com/unashamed.